So we can understand the disaster recovery planning in that way. Hello, hello, hello. So let me give a very brief introduction to what I have covered till now. So firstly, we'll go through the introduction. Introduction is the cybersecurity. What are the cybersecurity principles? Uh, if I'll give the example in the layman terms, is like understand the cybersecurity principles in that way that there are some rules and practices that help your keep your digital life safe. You can understand in that way like you have locked your door and in front of the door you are like maybe you're watching, maybe you some like put some cameras or maybe some other security devices to make sure that no unauthorized person get entered into your houses. So these are some like basic things you do to secure your house. So in in digital realm also you have to follow some rules and regulations in order to keep yourself secure. So firstly we are going through with the confidentiality, integrity and availability, the CIA triad. So they understand the confidentiality in a way that see like the confidentiality ensures that the sensitive information that is kept private and accessible only and only to the authorized individuals or maybe unauthorized systems. If I'll give the example of confidentiality is the encryption. We use encryption to make our data confidential, like no unauthorized individual or any system will not able to get our data. Or the access controls. If you in Unix systems, access controls are the controls that provide the users to the limited privileges. Like a user has some certain privileges. After that, he can't do some tasks that is use access controls. And the next one is integrity. So integrity basically integrity ensures that the data remain accurate, or maybe we can say that unaltered during its transmission or processing. So in integrity we use data hashings and digital signature to keep our data secure. Data hashing is the like a mathematical expression to create a certain values for that specific data, and digital signatures are used in the emails. From that you can get the idea. And the availability basically availability ensures that the system and data are all like always accessible, or we can say that when needed, and they also always remain operational. So in availability we use redundancy and disaster recovery planning. We under disaster recovery planning understand in that way like if you have a system and the system got some maybe files got corrupt, or maybe the system is getting any fault. In that case the system has its backup, and it has its capability to recover from that disaster and make itself available. Like in big companies like Google, Microsoft, or maybe Amazon, they like if their one server is maybe down, and that what server the other server will do, they will start taking that traffic into their server into themselves and make the systems always available. So if I'll give the overall example of CIA Triad, you can we can consider the online banking. In online banking, confidentiality plays role when your login credentials and your financial transaction are confidential and encrypted to basically prevents the unauthorized access. If I see integrity in online banking, you can when you initiate a financial transaction, at that time the bank ensures the transaction integrity by using its encryptions and maybe you can say secure channels. Also, they maintain the integrity of your account balances and transaction histories. At that time, the bank is maintaining all of that integrity, like from A point A to point B, wherever you are doing transactions or your account balances or maybe your transaction history. The But we can say the bank is making sure that your data will be secure during the transit. And talking about availability, the bank online services are available 24/7 and due to their robust disaster recovery planning. And also this ensures that you can access your account and you perform any transactions whenever you need to. Like this is the availability. And now let's move to next one. The next one is the mom, that is method of opportunity and motive. So if I'll give the example of the that give the overall idea of method, like method refers to the techniques, maybe tools and techniques that cyber criminals use to exploit vulnerability or maybe some lonesome attacks. If I'll give example of like phishing attacks. Talking about the opportunity represents the like conditions or weakness in the systems that create an opening for cyber attacks. If I give example, maybe for example, someone is not using MFA or maybe using very weak passwords. At that time, it created an opportunity for criminals to attack that specific machine. Talking about motive is basically the reason or the goal that drives cyber criminals to carry out these attacks. Basically, in most of the cases, understanding the motive can help the identifying the potential targets and type of attacks. In most of the cases, the motive is financial gain, or maybe some hacktivism, or maybe some supporting some political agenda. If I'll give the example for that is the we can understand it's if in case of phishing attack method we can maybe some we can say cyber criminal implement the we can implement the email filtering solutions so that the cyber criminal will not do any phishing or any altered email into our mail addresses, or also we can train our employees to recognize and report phishing attempts. In in case of opportunity, we can strengthen our access controls. We can implement 2FA multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication, and we can regularly update and patch our softwares to minimize the vulnerabilities. Also, in motive, we can I can say that be aware about the industry specific motives, maybe some intellectual property theft in technology sectors, or maybe tailor security measures accordingly. Like that's completely depend on your organizations. And now there are some other security principles also. The economy of mechanisms, the security mechanisms like should what the economy of mechanism says. The economy of mechanism says that the security mechanism that you are using it should be very simple and small as possible as that. Like if the design and implementation are simple and small, the fewer possibility to exist for the errors. And also the checking and testing process is less complicated obviously, so fewer components need to be tested. And also if we if I'll say that like interfaces between security modules are the suspect area, like which should be as simple as possible, because interface modules oftenly make implicit we can say assumptions about the input and output parameters, or maybe we can say that current system states. If any of these assumptions are wrong, the module action may produce unexpected results. So simple security framework, its understanding by developers and users enable the efficient development. Also the verification for enforcement methods also. And then what we can the next principle is least privilege. In Unix system or in cybersecurity or maybe InfoSec, in most of the security fields, Least privilege is the most common term used. Like a user should only have those privileges that need to complete his task. If the user needs to get only to the, like, maybe we can say that a file, so the user didn't get the what we can say right permission for the b file. So if the user has need only a file, it should get the access to only a file. And also the primary function is to control the assignment of the rights granted to the user, not the identity of the user. And also if I'll say that if I'll give the example, like if your boss demands root access to a Unix system that you are administrator, but if he doesn't need that, he does not require that such level of access, and so at that time you should not, like, give the access to the person that doesn't require such level of access. Also, you in that elevated rights of a user identity should be removed as soon as the rights are no longer needed. And the other is open design. The open design security principle is also, like, the security of mechanism should not be depend on the secrecy of its design and implementation. It suggests that the complexity does not add security. Basically, it's also the opposite approach known as the security through obscurity, but the principle does not only apply to the information such as a password or cryptographic system, but also to other computer security related operations. There are other security principle, that is the separation of privileges. Like a system should grant access permission based on more than one condition being satisfied. So if I'll give the, like, for example, I'll give the example to change to the root, there two conditions must be met. The user must know the root password, and the user must be in the right group, in the wheel group. So for this is the separation of privileges. With that example, you can understand that the principle may also be restricted because it limit access to the system entities. Like in that case, if I know the, what you can say, root password, but I'm not in the right group, then I cannot access the root. But if I'm into the right group, but I didn't know the password of the root, then also I'm not able to get the root access. So separation of privilege is also very important in cases of the Unix systems. The other principle is the psychological acceptability. A security mechanism should not make the resource more complicated to access if security mechanism were not present. So we can, like, I will give you the example. When we enter a wrong password, the system only tells us that the user ID and or password was incorrect. It should not tell that the only password was wrong as given the attacker information. Like at that time, attacker will get to know that the password is wrong, but the username is correct. If we'll give the information that user ID or password is incorrect, at that time the attacker will be in the, like, confusing state that whether user ID or wrong, maybe password is wrong. At that it will create a confusion for the attacker. So the psychological acceptability principle recognizes the human element in the computer security. Basically, it used to complicate to configure, maintain, or operate. The user will not conclude the necessary security mechanism. And the, what we can say, there are some other security principles also. That principle are basically used by the organization. That's something we use, like, there are has four key activities: govern, protect, detect, and response. Govern is basically identifying and managing the security risk. In protect, we implement controls to reduce security risk. And in detect phase, we are detecting and understanding the cybersecurity events to identify cybersecurity incidents. And in response phase, we are responding to and recovering from such cybersecurity incidents. If I'll give the, like, governance principles, all has also, like, five parts. In, like, the chief information security officer should provide the leadership and oversight of the security, because the information security officer has the overall idea and have access to the every part of the security mechanisms. So, and the identity and value of the system application and data is determined and documented, because in the case of the security risk everything should be documented, because then later on in the response phase or recovering phase, that is used to recover from that specific. Also the confidentiality, integrity and availability requirements for the system application and data also determined and documented. Talking about the security risk management processes also are embedded into the organization risk management framework. Some security risks should be identified, documented, and managed and accepted both before system and application are authorized to use. If I talk about the protect principles are the, like we can say, system and applications are delivered and supported by trusted suppliers. Apart from that, only trusted and supported operating systems, applications, and computer code can execute on systems. The one more thing, the data is encrypted at rest, also in transit between different systems. That is also very important, as I already talked about in the CIA confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The data in rest is comes into the confidentiality, and data in transit comes into the integrity. Data communicated between different systems is controlled and inspectable. Also, that's we can make sure that using the data hashing. So data application and configuration settings are backed up in the secure and proven manner on regular basis, because in case of any cyber security attack, or we can say that there is some issue with the server, at that time we are able to get back to our systems data. In detect principle, we can say that event logs should be collected and analyzed in timely manner to detect any possible cybersecurity events. Or talking about the cybersecurity events that are analyzed in timely manner, in that if there is any cybersecurity incident that are identified, they should be handled properly. And talking about the response principles, in the response principles, like we can say the cybersecurity events that are reported both internally and externally to the relevant body in timely manners. Talking about the cybersecurity incidents that are contained, eradicated, or recovered in the timely manner. Business continuity and disaster recovery plans are intact when required. And there's one more very famous mature modeling in cybersecurity. That is like if the mature modeling is incomplete, at that time the cybersecurity principles are maybe partially implemented or completely not implemented. If the mature modeling is initial phases, the cybersecurity principles are implemented but in very poor or ad hoc manner. If the mature modeling is in developing, at that time the cybersecurity principles are like sufficient implement, but not in project by project basis. Maybe they are implemented on complete organization, but not on the project by project basis. Like in every project, there are some specific requirements on the cybersecurity part. Talking about the mature modeling managing, at that time the cybersecurity principles are established as standard business practices and robust implemented throughout the organization. And the last one is optimizing, a deliberate focus on optimization and continual improvement exist for the implementation for the cybersecurity principles throughout the organization. And if I'll talk about the, what we can say, the secure overall idea of the security principles, you can see, you have to be like you have to keep your systems updated. Also you have to like keep your password secure. You have to use strong password. You have to use multi-factor authentications in order to secure yourself from the bad actors or any cyber